All right, let's take a look at the role configuration example. And so, I mean, there is the role and cluster role, but they're very similar. But the key thing is that the role sets a namespace. So here it says namespace default, where with a cluster role, you're not worried about namespaces. So here you can change the kind to role or cluster role. Then you have your rules or permissions of actions this role is allowed to perform. So we have API groups. And we do this in the kubectl extras where I list out the API resources, which is a command that you definitely will need to know for the exam that shows you all the possible groups. So if you just leave it blank there like that, then it's going to consider all core API groups. And I imagine that you can do a comma and just say the exact groups that you want, then the resources of that group, and then you have verbs. So get, watch, list. Things would be other things like patch, delete, update, create, things like that. But the exam doesn't really test you on that kind of stuff, but this is just practical knowledge you should know. Of course, you'd have to create a rule binding. We do all that stuff in the follow along, so even though we're not seeing a lot here, we will do a practical example, but we're not going to do a cluster rule just because it's a lot of work and outside the scope of the KCNA, but this gives you kind of an idea of what you'd have to do.